While Knuckles used to be a supervillain, as well as the leader of the Vicious Six until they double-crossed him. Now he takes the role as young Gru's parental figure. Sebastian's spiral went down further with his drinking, that he double-crossed Wild Knuckles. Now he knew he had to get revenge on Sebastian. He decided to go into hiding and became the youngest detective of the Crimson City Police Department, most notably for his involvement with Elroy's disappearance and vice versa. Well, we kind of missed our window, didn't we? No warning at all. Who knew the rules for running a film franchise changed so fast? Still, not that we were happy, mind you. Patty McHugh. Who are these people? Content shows. Behind the scenes edit. Sebastian is voiced by Edward as Sebastian. Okay, hold on. Let's do. Oh, I didn't mean to do that. Let's just okay. Now let's try. Using his first appearance of Dr. Scarf, Sebastian learned of Dr. Scarf's past in Crimson Medical School, but the doctor wanted to wipe out his memories completely. Eventually, the doctor stumbled onto a memory of Claymore Factory, the go-to source for his deadly drug. Dr. Scarf had been through so much, he really wanted just to kill off Sebastian so he can go. Who's Dr. Scarf? Luke and Luke. Dr. Scarf believed Luke to be a monster and hated everything he did, while both of his hands were amputated and greatly impaired in terms of movement. Their mental capacity remained untouched. A bit of an enigma. They look like complete opposites, but they seem to have a lot in common. They both have a desire to find a cure for their afflictions, and they think of the world around them with extreme logic. What is happening? I want a battle. What is this? This is not a battle. They started to fight. No, wait, a fight had broken loose. There we go. Wild Knuckles was rendered unconscious with a deep blow by Sebastian. Then a scared Grace accidentally fired her gun and then hit Wild Knuckles in the face. Sebastian then killed her instantly for getting involved. That night, Sebastian returned to the party with his gun, drawing, killing the others. Then the next morning, Six took a trip to Mexico, leaving behind the corpse of Grace. Forgetting about the murder, Sebastian acted weird at work and sent off the team that he led. Then he went on. No! Unfortunately for Sebastian and Wild Knuckles, they had faced their biggest foe, monetization.
Okay, hold on. It's okay.
Because of this threat, we had to move the battle to a new AI. A better, a bolder, a stronger one. For now, we can finish this battle once and for all to see who is the superior fighter. Then he went on a rampage and killed the entire squad. It was while trying to arrest another crime family. The Burros were going to kill him. So he did what he thought would help. He shot them all and fled. When the Burros started to give chase, he turned around and opened fire on them. By the time police got him, it was too late. They found him dead. but not before he killed one more cop. After this incident, the city demanded a change in leadership. One man stepped up and offered to take the job, Captain Jack Derival. But before he could officially begin his tenure, his first command was to place Sebastian on administrative leave. Meanwhile, Sebastian's parents came back from their vacation with some bad news. Their son had been arrested for the death of 2 policemen. The only way to clear his name was for him to go undercover in the criminal underworld. He accepted the assignment under the condition that he'd be allowed to choose which mobsters he infiltrated. Sebastian looked over at the list of criminals and picked out the biggest gang in town, the Brujos. He gathered up his gear, rented a car, and headed into the city to start his new life of crime. The Brujos are an organized crime syndicate based in New York. They're known as the most powerful group in the area and have been a thorn on the side of law enforcement since their formation. Their base of operations is a small office building located at 979 Fifth Avenue. The main boss of the organization resides here along with the rest of the inner circle. Brujo members are extremely territorial. They don't like outsiders coming to their turf without invitation, and those ones who dare are usually paid handsomely. The Brujo's primary income source comes from drug smuggling. They also smuggle counterfeit money and weapons. They're big players in the legal arms trade and often deal directly with other good organizations, such as the Flamingo Cartel. The Brujos are also known for their human trafficking operation. In addition to bringing women in from abroad, they recruit local women and use them as sex slaves or prostitutes. A few months after his arrival in New York, Sebastian started working for the Brujos. He was assigned to work with the 3 of their top men. One was a high-ranking member named Angel Ortiz. The second was a subordinate of his called Anthony Gomez. The third was a boss himself, El Diablo. Sebastian was given a week's worth of training on how to handle himself with the Brujos hierarchy. Although he didn't like being treated like an outsider, he understood that he needed to prove himself worthy of joining the inner circle. Sebastian spent his days shadowing the 3 men, learning everything he could about their daily routine. He also received information about the crime families, associates, and activities. One day, Sebastian overheard El Diablo discussing plans with Angel and Anthony. The boss was planning on using his crew to rob a bank. Knowing that he was in danger of losing his position, he decided to help Sebastian. He told him that he needed to steal a van, then drive it to the bank before dawn. Sebastian immediately set out to make his plan a reality. He used the van he borrowed from the Brujos to carry the stolen money to a warehouse. After making sure no cops were in, he stashed the cash in a nearby garage bin. Then he drove the van back to Brujos headquarters. On the day of the robbery, Sebastian awoke early and hid inside a van parked outside of a grocery store on 5th Avenue. Then, just before 7:30 a.m., he heard a knock on the door of his apartment. He opened it to find El Diablo standing there. "Where's the van?" the boss asked. "I've got it right here," Sebastian replied. "It's locked up in my garage." El Diablo looked over his shoulder. "You mean you stole it?" "Yeah, I took it when the boss said we should steal one for the robbery." "Then I have her robbery? That's quite an audacious plan. Who are you? Who are you? Okay." "Good thinking," El Diablo said. "Get in the van. Let's get out of here." Sebastian quickly climbed into the driver's seat and started driving. He followed the boss and the rest of the crew into the bank. The 4 men made inside the bank without any problems. Once inside, Sebastian saw that the robbers didn't have much in the way of weapons. Only 2 men carried guns, while everyone else is armed with baseball bats. Once the other brujos split up and went to different areas of the bank, Sebastian knocked out the guard and grabbed the nearest teller. Then he sped off in his getaway van with the $4 million in stolen cash. That was until... Wait. Until... That is until Master Chief showed up. He had gotten a tip that someone was stealing a van near the bank. He had been following it for several blocks and had seen it pulling it into the parking lot. When he and his team arrived, they spotted the van speeding away. They chased it down and pulled up right beside it. As soon as the van stopped, Master Chief jumped out and opened fire. "Hey!" Sebastian shouted. "Don't shoot! It's me!" Oh my god, Master Chief. Master Chief turned to the man in the van. "What the hell? Who the hell are you?" Sebastian explained that he worked for the Brujos and they were robbing the bank. When he finished, Master Chief pointed his gun at him and ordered his men to tie him up. As he lay there helpless, Sebastian realized that he wasn't going to escape. He could only pray that El Diablo and the rest of his team would rescue him before Master Chief caught up with him. Is Sebastian not going to let him know that he's undercover? While Sebastian was tied up, El Diablo and the rest of his crew ran into trouble. They had been driving towards the Brujos headquarters when they noticed a police car was following them. El Diablo knew he couldn't get away from the cops if the cops caught up with him. So he pulled over and ordered his men to wait for him. Then he led the police on a short chase through the streets of New York. By the time El Diablo got back to the van, the cops were already surrounding. He hopped out of the vehicle and surrendering to the officers. Sebastian heard a voice call out from behind him. Who is its voice? Who could it be? Are you Sebastian Castellanos? He turned to see Master Chief approaching. Before he could reply, the chief snapped his handcuffs around Sebastian's wrists and locked him up. Well, I guess that makes us even, Master Chief says, smiling. Now we'll both be spending the next few hours in lockup. Sebastian looked over at his captor, still amazed that he'd beaten him. But Master Chief didn't seem bothered by the outcome. Music is a vibe at this point. Okay. But Master Chief didn't seem bothered by the outcome. Instead, he laughed. He then told Sebastian that he owed him a favor for saving those cops. Sebastian agreed to the terms and promised to repay Master Chief later. Then the two men continued talking as they walked towards the police station. During the conversation, Sebastian learned that Master Chief was actually a retired Marine named John Master Chief. According to Master Chief, he had served in Iraq during the war. From there, he moved on to working security jobs in various cities across America. He'd been doing this sort of thing for years now, ever since he was dishonorably discharged from the military. I guess you could say I'm a bit of a rebel, he said. Sebastian was intrigued by this new information. He wanted to know more, but the former soldier told him that it wasn't something he really talked about until they reached the police station and sat down at a table to wait for the charges against them to be filled. Then a bomb goes off in the police station. and everyone's given an excused sentence. The Brujos were shocked to hear about the explosion at the police station. After hearing about the incident, El Diablo became worried that it might affect the case against him. So he called one of his cronies. "How are things going with the investigation?" he asked. "Not good, boss," he responded. "Angel Ortiz. We haven't been able to find any evidence linking you guys to the bombing." Wait, so is El Diablo and his gang the good guys now? Just keep looking, El Diablo. I'm sure they will find something. Angel hung up the phone, turned to Anthony Gomez. "Boss wants us to keep looking." Anthony nodded and looked over at Sebastian. "I hope we find something before the judge sentences you guys." Sebastian didn't respond. He knew that he'd done wrong. He also had no idea what was going on, and didn't want to waste any more time wondering about the situation, so he kept quiet and waited for his fate to come calling. After hearing about the bomb, the police station, El Diablo was convinced that the Brujos were to blame for the explosion. El Diablo, bad guy, turned good guy. After hearing about the bomb blast at the police station, El Diablo was convinced that the Brujos were to blame for the explosion. But he didn't believe that the investigation was over yet, so he gave orders for Angel, Anthony, and Sebastian to stay in hiding. Then he sent a message to the rest of Brujo Anarchy. Wait, wasn't El Diablo the boss of the Brujos? So he's not no longer, and he's actually a good guy, and the Brujos are still bad guys? "Get everyone out of town," he told them. "I need you to disappear completely." Everyone complied with his request. They left their homes, abandoned their cars, and boarded their planes with their families. They all headed for Canada, where they hoped to start a new life without the constant threat of death hanging over their heads. But when the cops caught up with them in Toronto, they weren't quite ready to give up. Little did they know that the Brujos, or good morals, burned down all of Canada. To escape justice, the Brujos had managed to flee the United States before anyone could stop them, but they hadn't gone far. They ended up a small town called Loon Lake, which is southeast of Toronto. The group settled into their new homes, starting in all of Canada. Yes, all of Canada. The group settled into their new homes and started living like normal people. They bought houses, shops, and restaurants, began running them as legitimate business. With every passing day, they grew increasingly nervous. They were afraid the police would eventually catch up with them, and that they wouldn't be able to run forever. In an effort to avoid arrest, the group agreed to go into business together. This way they could pool resources and buy whatever they need to remain hidden. They pulled their money and purchased the entire time. They renamed it to Loon Lake. Wasn't it called Loon Lake? Yeah, it was already called Loon Lake. And they renamed it to Loon Lake. With the help of some magic tricks, they made the town appear larger than it actually was. This allowed them to expand their operations without attracting too much attention from the law. The Brujos were use Loon Lake to conduct their criminal activities without getting caught. Meanwhile, Sebastian kept working for El Diablo, helping him run the crime family's operations. He stayed close to his boss, doing everything he could to earn his trust and respect. Sebastian had always dreamed of becoming a drug lord, and he finally got his chance. Now that his criminal career had begun, there's nothing he wanted more than to see it succeed. He was determined to become the most powerful crime boss in North America, and knew that he could do it if he stuck with the Brujos and proved it to himself to the boss. Over time, the Brujos expanded their reach throughout Canada. What? So the Sebastian is now actually wanting to be a crime lord. And sticking with the Brujos. So he wants to be a crime lord in North America, and he wants to do it by teaming up with Brujos, who is in Canada, doing some magic mojo in Loon Lake, and make crime over there. Ooh, so many twists and turns. And thanks to their success, El Diablo earned a reputation among the Mexican drug cartels. Soon they started sending their assassins to try and kill him, but these hits never succeeded because Sebastian was always one step ahead of his enemies. He neutralized the hitmen before they could act. Then in 2009, the Mexican cartel called the Zetas kidnapped or Angel Cheese to try to extort him. Sebastian wasn't having any of that, so he launched a counterattack. He hired a private army to defeat the Zetas in a massive battle. With the Zetas defeated, the Mexican cartel backed off. They no longer attacked the Brujos and left him alone. Just when things started to become quiet out from the fire and ashes rises the new hero. Well, he's not really new. The hero once again. Oh god, hold on. Who is it? None other than Master Chief! The hero who was told not to try and escape from custody for the past 3 years. El Diablo and his Brujo gang have been living in peace, free from the threat of danger. But that all changed when the Zetas decided to take another shot at killing them. One morning, awoke to find the Zetas standing outside of his house. He immediately knew that the cartel was planning another attack. He raced downstairs to check the house for any signs of danger, but he couldn't see anything unusual. So he went to wake up El Diablo and alert him to the potential threat. Sebastian found El Diablo in the kitchen, drinking coffee and eating breakfast. "What's wrong?" he asked. El Diablo looked up and saw the look on Sebastian's face. His eyes widened in shock, and soon he realized what was happening. "The Zetas are outside," Sebastian said. "And I don't think we're going to make it out of here alive." El Diablo nodded. "I figured something like that might happen." "You knew?" El Diablo shrugged, stood up, and hurried upstairs to check his family. This is a big house. Suddenly domestic. He returned shortly and informed Sebastian that they'd all be okay. He assured that his partner and the Zetas were probably just looking for revenge and wouldn't dare hurt his family. "If they try to harm my children, I killed them myself," he declared. Sebastian believed him and decided not to worry about him anymore. But while El Diablo was confronting his wife, Sebastian noticed a large truck heading their way. "There's another one," he said. "It looks like the Zetas have brought reinforcements with them." El Diablo nodded and sat down at the table. All we can do is wait. The Zetas had arrived at Sebastian's house and were getting ready to launch their attack. They had taken position along the street and preparing themselves for the fight. The leader of the gang approached Sebastian and pulled out a pistol. He pointed it directly at his head, put the barrel between his eyes. "Let's go," he ordered. Sebastian waited for his boss to finish, then he grabbed his gun and handed it to men. "Why didn't you tell me that they were coming?" "I didn't want you to panic, El Diablo, so I decided to let you sleep through it." Sebastian frowned. Then he picked up his wife and kids and ran into the garage. Once the door closed, he got out of the vehicle and headed inside. Once they were safe inside, Sebastian pulled out his phone and dialed the phone. He heard a female voice pick up on the other end of the line. It was Master Chief. Who lived next door to the Bros. "Master Chief, it's me," Sebastian says. "Are you there?" "Yes, I am here," Master Chief replied. "What's going on?" "The Zetas are outside," Sebastian explained. "I think we're about to get killed." "Is that all?" Master Chief said. "Can you handle it?" "No, I can't," Sebastian said. "That's why I'm calling you. You need to come over here right now." Master Chief hung up the phone and ran over to Sebastian's house. When he got there, he found a group of Zetans waiting for him. "What are you doing here?" he demanded. "It's a long story," Sebastian said, "but we're in trouble." "How many of them are there?" the Master Chief asked. Such a Master Chief to think that. 10 of them, Sebastian answered, "and they have guns." "You've got your work cut out for you," Master Chief said. "But I'll take care of them." He charged at the Zetans, who opened fire on him. So intense. They shot him multiple times, but he kept coming. He was determined to protect Sebastian and his family. Finally, one of the Zetans got close enough to deliver a fatal blow, but before the assassin could strike, he suddenly fell to the ground and died on impact. Master Chief had him use his superhuman strength speed to dodge the bullet and knock the assassin off balance. "Who are you?" one of the Zetans yelled. "Where did you come from?" Master Chief ignored and rushed towards Sebastian's house. He pushed the door open and entered the house. He paused for a moment, taking stock of the situation. One of the Zetans was lying on the floor, dead. Another had fallen on the floor in pain and clutching his stomach. Then Master Chief stepped forward and opened fire on them. Both of the men dropped to the ground. Master Chief continued shooting until both of them stopped moving. "What happened to them?" Sebastian asked. Did they shoot you?" Sebastian shook his head, then reached behind him and took out his gun. "I didn't need to fire a single shot," he said. They lost their nerve. Sebastian stared at Master Chief for several seconds. He didn't know what to say or how to react, but when he finally spoke, the words come out in a rush. "I love you," he told his neighbor. "Thank you for saving us." Master Chief smiled. Then he turned to leave, but paused for a second and looked back. "I'll see you around," he told Sebastian. Sebastian watched his friend walk away. Then he turned to his family and hugged them tight. He didn't know how he could ever repay Master Chief, but he vowed to pay him back someday. It's wonderful that his family is safe. But now that they're all together, perhaps you should consider how to pay Master Chief for his efforts. I suppose we'll find out. Meanwhile, El Diablo and his family were huddled together in the basement. They didn't know if they were going to survive this attack, but if they did, they planned to continue living in Loon Lake. Is Chief actually smiling? Being told I love you, I'm crying. After a mere minutes, the noise outside finally ceased. Sebastian peeked his head outside from the stairs to glance outside, and he saw that the Zadans had left and were no longer a threat.